The night she knocked on his door, rain was pouring like the sky itself had given up. The old wooden house trembled under the storm, and Daniel stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the silhouette of a woman whose soaked dress clung to her very pregnant belly. He had barely enough money to keep the lights on, barely enough strength to carry his own pain, and yet fate had brought a stranger to his doorstep with nowhere else to go. He did not know that this single decision would unravel a past he had buried and change his life forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel GrandmaDiery. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel was 34, a single father raising his 7-year-old daughter Lily after losing his wife in a car accident 3 years earlier. Grief had hollowed him out, but poverty had carved even deeper lines into his face. He worked long shifts at a warehouse, stacking boxes until his back ached and his hands blistered. Every dollar went to rent, food, and Lily's school supplies. When the landlord raised the rent again, Daniel made a painful decision. He would rent out the spare room in his small, aging house. It felt strange inviting a stranger into the fragile world he had built for his daughter, but he had no other choice. The advertisement was simple: room for rent, quiet home, affordable. He expected students or traveling workers to call. Instead, that stormy evening, a pregnant woman stood on his porch, drenched and trembling. Her name was Emily. She looked exhausted, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes holding a mixture of fear and pride. She explained that she had nowhere else to stay. No family nearby, no savings left, just a suitcase and the hope that someone might say yes. Daniel hesitated. He saw the risk. A single man, a child in the house, and a pregnant stranger. It was complicated. But he also saw something else. He saw desperation that mirrored his own from years ago when he had sat in a hospital corridor praying his wife would survive. He remembered how helplessness felt, and so he stepped aside and let her in. The first weeks were awkward but peaceful. Emily kept to herself, spending most of her time in the small rented room, occasionally helping Lily with homework or cooking simple meals when Daniel worked late. Lily, who had grown up too quickly after losing her mother, seemed drawn to Emily's gentle presence. The house slowly felt less empty. Daniel noticed that for the first time in years, laughter echoed through the kitchen. But beneath the fragile comfort, Daniel carried worry. Medical bills, extra groceries, the possibility of complications. He often lay awake at night, calculating expenses in his head, wondering if he had made a mistake. Yet every time he considered asking Emily to leave, he would see Lily asleep on the couch beside her, tiny hand resting on Emily's round belly, whispering about the baby as if it were already part of their family. Emily rarely spoke about her past. She avoided questions about the baby's father. When Daniel once gently asked, her face tightened, and she simply said that some chapters are better closed. He respected her silence, though curiosity lingered. There was something refined about her, the way she spoke, the way she read thick novels in the evenings. She did not seem like someone who had always struggled. One afternoon, Daniel returned home earlier than usual and found Emily sitting on the porch steps, holding a small silver locket. Tears streamed silently down her face. She quickly wiped them away when she saw him. That was the first time he sensed the weight she carried was far heavier than he imagined. As the months passed, Daniel's finances worsened. The warehouse cut his hours. Bills stacked up on the kitchen counter like silent threats. He began skipping meals so Lily would not have to. Emily noticed. Without saying much, she started freelancing online, typing late into the night, contributing quietly to household expenses. Daniel felt both grateful and ashamed. He had wanted to be the one saving her, not the other way around. Then one evening, everything changed. A sleek black car pulled up outside the small house, a sharp contrast to the cracked driveway and peeling paint. Two well-dressed men stepped out. Lily peeked through the curtains while Daniel's heart pounded. Emily stood in the hallway, pale and trembling. The men were not there to harm her. They were there to take her home. The truth unraveled slowly but powerfully. Emily was not just a struggling woman with nowhere to go. She was the estranged daughter of a wealthy businessman who owned multiple companies across the state. After refusing an arranged marriage and choosing to leave an emotionally suffocating environment, she had cut ties with her family. When she became pregnant and refused to reveal the father's identity, a man who had abandoned her, her family had tried to force her back under their control. She ran. She wanted her child to be born in peace, away from manipulation and power. But her father had fallen ill. Regret had softened him. He had been searching for her for months, not to punish her but to apologize. The men outside were there with news. Her father wanted to see her, not as a business asset but as his daughter. Daniel expected that this was the end, that Emily would leave and their small house would return to silence. He braced himself for Lily's heartbreak, but what happened next stunned him. Emily did go back to see her father, and when she returned days later, her eyes were different, lighter, freer. She told Daniel that her father had admitted his mistakes. He wanted to support her and her child, no conditions attached. He had even offered financial assistance to Daniel, thanking him for protecting his daughter when he could not. Daniel refused at first. Pride rose in his chest. But Emily explained gently that sometimes accepting help is not weakness, it is allowing kindness to complete its circle. The financial burden lifted slowly. Daniel was able to fix the roof, pay off debts, and reduce his exhausting shifts at the warehouse. Lily prepared a tiny corner of the house for the baby, decorating it with handmade drawings. When Emily gave birth, Daniel drove her to the hospital in the middle of the night, rain once again pouring as if mirroring the night she first arrived. This time, however, he was not afraid. He felt something close to family. When he held the newborn baby in his arms, he realized that the stranger who had knocked on his door had given him more than he had given her. She had restored warmth to a house that grief had frozen. Emily eventually reconciled fully with her father, but she chose to stay in Daniel's home for a while longer. Not out of necessity, but out of love for the imperfect, honest life they had built together. And Daniel understood something profound. Sometimes the people we think we are saving are the very ones sent to save us. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something special. Comment the word kindness below if you believe one small act can change a lifetime. As life slowly settled into a new rhythm, Daniel stood one evening on the same porch where it had all begun. The house was still small, the paint still chipped, but inside it was full of laughter, of hope, of second chances. He had opened his door to a pregnant stranger,